Welcome to Conversations with Aaliyah. Tune in for inspiration, information, and upliftment as creatives and entrepreneurs share their journeys, challenges, and successes.
First of all, I just want to say thank you to Lynn Harris to be my guest here. And I'm going to just tell you a little bit about her. Lynn is a comedian, award-winning writer and producer, and founder of Gold Comedy, the comedy school, creative network, and content studio where women and others amp up their comedy careers, build powerful communities, and make funny stuff. Prior to that, Lynn's 25-plus-year journalism career included writing on gender, culture, and social issues for the New York Times and New York Times Magazine, Salon Glamour, NPR, and a million other publications and anthologies. Her work has changed laws and lives. Lynn co-created one of the internet's earliest success stories, the award-winning Breakup Girl, the superhero who saves your love life, who appeared online, on TV, in books, and on stage. She is the author of 6 books, including Death by Chick Lit and Breakup Girl to the Rescue. As VP of Communications for the global human rights group Breakthrough, Lynn brought her blend of humor and advocacy to create high-impact programming, including Be That Guy animations, screened at NASCAR and Indy 500 events, and Dudes Against Violence Against Women live comedy shows reaching 38 million. An experienced comedy performer, teacher, producer, she's a co-founder of the wildly popular comedy event series Persisticon, which raises money to elect women. She's also a former Tanya Harding lookalike, which is a long story. So thank you so much, Lynn, for joining us here today.
Thanks for having me.
That is...
If only we had some women to elect right now, you know?
Oh, I don't know. Is there any?
We got to go find some.
Oh, fingers crossed. I'm not into politics, but you're in journalism, so you probably go into that kind of stuff. Or you were in journalism, but
yeah.
I that would be really cool if first woman president for me, you know. Anyway,
Sure would.
Yep. So, Lynn, thank you for being here. Can you tell us how you first started getting into, like, how you transitioned from journalism to comedy? First, I guess, is what my first question would be.
I never really had a dramatic transition from one to the other because I always cared about both and always tried to blend both. You know, when you first start out in journalism, you definitely, and when you continue to go to be in journalism, you can't always write about what you want to, and you can't always write in the voice that you want to, and that's fine. It's a craft. It's not necessarily your job to express your personal opinion in your personal voice. That's fine. But as I developed, as I was sort of journalist by day and comedian by night, I worked at journalism for so long and worked at comedy for so long that I was fortunate enough and worked hard enough that I got into the level where, yes, I could write about what I wanted to. And yes, I could write in the voice that I wanted to, which was my own and which was funny. So that once you're, to some degree, the name recognition, or I should say better put, the trust of your editors and your publications. And once you've honed the skill of being able to write about even serious issues in using humor in a way that actually forwards the conversation and doesn't just make light of something that is not funny, then you get to a place where you really can, I don't think you can change people's minds. I don't think you can make people do a 180, but you can use humor or snark or whatever your style is to make people go, huh, in a way that they might not have before when they're just reading, straight up reporting. Right. So that's all to say. I never really made a transition. What I was able to do was develop the two at the same time, so that more and more, and as I was more and more experienced, I was more and more able to blend the two to really try and make a difference around issues that are not funny at all, but
Yeah.
that really do require change.
Right, right. Oh, I love that so much. What I'm hearing is that you didn't switch over. You had been working parallel with both comedy and your journalism at the same time. And as a
Yeah.
result of your experience and the trust of your editors, they allowed you, once you got more experience and they trusted you, to speak your own voice. And then you incorporated humor to make a people to be more open to hearing about different changes that are serious and that can help move progress in a way forward a little bit. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
then you get to where, journalism was a lot easier to, I don't want to like throw myself under the bus, but journalism was a lot easier to succeed in back then. There were for reasons. There wasn't as much competition from uh, bloggers who work for free. There wasn't as much. It was just a different market, and it was easier. Again, I don't mean to say it didn't take a ton of work, but it was easier to land your own column. I had a column at the Daily News. I had advice columns at 5 or 6 different magazines. I had again. Oh, and I was around at Salon when they launched a blog that was focused in particular on issues of concern to women and non-cis dudes. So I was already on the team there when that happened. So I became a big part of that team. So it wasn't just kind of me finding my own way by myself. It was establishing the relationships and the longevity with different publications that then allowed me to be in the right place at the right time with the right level of experience and trust.
Right, right. And so can you tell us now, like, are you no longer doing journalism and are you just doing comedy only at this point?
I do a little. I definitely, write to get paid sometimes, like when I have an opinion about
Uh-huh.
something.
Uh-huh.
And
But is that journalism? That's not, right?
Yes. Oh yeah,
It
yeah,
still
yeah. I
is.
mean, oh
Oh,
sure, yeah, oh
okay.
sure. It's journalism almost never doesn't have an opinion behind it because a human being is writing it.
Right.
It the expectation around, I think what matters is that there's expectations about what you're reading that deserve to be met. So in other words, you can never have a fully objective piece of journalism, even from AI, right? Because
Mm,
AI is still pulling from stuff that humans wrote,
right.
right? But
Uh-huh.
I don't mean to be like, gotcha, it's never not biased. That's not what I mean. I just mean it's a product of humans. Like, how could it possibly be? At some point, humans are making choices about what words are on the page. Is that good or
Mhm.
bad? It's neither. It's just true, right?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Even if the choices got made by humans before AI, turned it into pound cake. Like, I don't know. But I think what matters is the expectation.
Yeah.
So generally, when you read just straight up news, your expectation is that the journalist who wrote it has followed the rules of the trade such that you have a reasonable expectation that it is
Mm.
generally objective. Versus when you read something that's labeled advertorial, there was something in the Times today that was about Kissimmee, Florida, which I'm
Uh-huh.
curious about. It's in the Everglades, it's in Central Florida, but it was
Uh-huh.
clearly labeled advertorial.
Uh-huh.
So I clicked on it because I'm curious about. I've been to the Everglades, but I want to take my husband to the Everglades before there are no Everglades. So I was like, oh, I've never thought about going to that area of Florida. Let me find out. But I fully knew it was an article style advertisement for that that region of Florida. So
Yeah.
that's fine because they told me that,
Right.
And so the same thing with opinion. Yeah, I've written a bunch of opinion pieces that are part of my wheelhouse these days, like about why Louis C.K.'s exploits show us that we just need more women in comedy. Stuff
Mm.
that are kind of in my wheelhouse, but that's journalism. But they tell you at the top, it literally says opinion,
Hmm.
so it's not the
Uh-huh.
opinion of the LA Times. It's not the opinion of the editorial board. It's
Yeah.
my opinion, but they paid me to express it. So
Yeah.
I think it's the packaging that makes the most that is the most important. And so that's why, yes, that's journalism. It's just one kind of journalism.
Oh, okay. Oh,
So I do it. I do it
Yeah.
occasionally. Yeah, I do
Okay.
it occasionally when something comes up, either that I'm on fire to write about or that someone asks me to write about because of my various wheelhouses.
Okay. All right. Cool. Thank you for clarifying. Because growing up, I was told journalism was the first one, as objective as possible, and that opinion. I never thought of that. I never thought of that as journalism, but based on what you said, it's just that setting up the box, the expectation, but it's still considered journalism.
And it still has to be accurate. Like if I'm writing, if I'm like fired up and pissed off and writing an opinion piece about Louis C.K. and why the entire comedy industry is set up to be unfair to women, I also have to do some journalism because I have to check my facts. I have to report it out. I can't just be like, I think it's unfair. I have to actually, throw in some stats about, how many women are in, are leading comedy shows versus men, how many women are TV shows, how many women are generally on stage any given night versus men, et cetera. Like you still have to do journalism to back up to shore up your opinion. So like they're still not, the lines are not super, the lines are porous, but they're there.
Okay, got it. Oh, that's so cool. I never knew that. And speaking about this with females in comedy, which, by the way, I love improv and I do love comedy. Yes, 100%. I mean, I don't even know if you really need I guess you have to put down stats, but it's so obvious to me that you can just see it, that it's unequal.
Just look at our faces. We're miserable. We're exhausted. Yeah. It's I mean, it's and that also depends on your audience, right? Like if I'm writing that article for the New York Times, I got to back it up. If I'm writing it for a blog that's read by women who know exactly what I'm talking about, or not, just non-cis het dudes who know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And then the expectations are different. They're not going to be like, I'm sorry, where are your statistics? Like it super depends on the audience. In those cases, you don't need them. We all know.
Yeah, it's like in your face, Yeah. Because you have this desire to bring issues to the forefront, but in a way that can make a positive difference rather than shutting people down. How did you start getting Gold Comedy together? First of all, what is Gold Comedy and how did you start it? And then why do you care so much?
So I'll start with why I care. I care because I've been, just a huge feminist my entire life. So I care, and all the ways that term has, and in all the ways that term has evolved. I care about gender justice, and I love comedy. Now, is comedy the only place that you can kind of forward gender justice? Wow, no. We have everything from, the UN to corporate boardrooms to community organizations. But comedy is my lane. And I do think comedy, it's also not random. Comedy matters because when you make people laugh, you make people listen. So that's what comedy is, power. So how come only some people get that power? I think it matters as long as we live in a world where male comics, and again, I'm going to oversimplify binaries here just for ease, but in a world where male comics are comics and women comics are female comics or women comics, we're not there yet. It still means that the norm is a dude.
Yeah.
And, some of our best friends are dudes and they're very funny and we love them. They're great comics. But I'm talking about the norms that we're always considered female comics, and a dude never gets called a male comic. He's just a comic.
Yeah.
So, and the same thing, and it's because someone said this, and I wish I remembered who, because she should get credit. But someone was like, you don't call your lawyer a lawyerette or your doctor a doctoress. I mean, in fairness, you do say female doctor, you still do make it weird, So I want comedy to be the lane where I help normalize the idea of anyone but a straight white dude in comedy, so that we're all just comics.
Yeah.
And I think it matters because, again, if you have the power to make people laugh, you have power. And you define what's funny. You also help define what's not funny. You also help define who's in power. Who do we get to laugh at? When are we punching up and when are we punching down? And how does that help us define all the power structures? And now, have I made comedy unfunny for you? Probably. But like, that stuff all matters to me. And it all came from, to go to your earliest question, it all came from, and we all know this, I was not unique. We all had, like, you know what, I did stand up in the 90s, fully was not unique. And this still happens. You know, you're the only woman on a lineup. So the host is, now we got a lady coming up, now we got a lady coming to the stage, and then they forget your name and then they just assume that you work at Lifetime, which happened to me all the time, and you're just like, bro, we can write the feminist essay about what's wrong with that, but also you're bad at your job. Your job is to get the crowd psyched for the next comic. And and I've had dudes be like, now we got a lady and what's her name? What's your name again? Oh, Linda. My name's not Linda. And where do you work? Oxygen. Okay. Lifetime. Anyway, here she is. Like, dude, you're bad at your job.
Wow.
If you don't get the audience as psyched for me as you did for Jake and Bruce, who went before me, and Thad and whatever doofus goes after me, you're bad at your job.
Yeah.
So until that, and by the way, that was Jeff Ross. I said it. Anyway,
Okay.
but also it happened a whole bunch of times. It happened all the time. We all know this. It happened all the time. So thank goodness, I didn't have like the worst experience. Like, I didn't have like, I probably did because it was the water I swam in, but I didn't have like one horrific, God forbid, like, sexual harassment or assault moment, but I truly believe that, as with everyone else in my gang at that time, that we were underestimated, underbooked, undervalued,
Right.
and for working twice as hard, and the dudes worked half as, not to slight individual dudes, because comedy's hard for everyone, and it was hard for dudes too. It is. But like, of course we were overlooked and underestimated. Of course they talked about what we were wearing. Of course they told us that, like, we should talk more about sex, but we should talk about less about sex. Of course we should talk more about dating, but we should also talk less about dating. Of course we should talk more about politics, but we should also be hot. Like, like, come on. So It was all of those frustrations, which of course have their echoes in pretty much any job.
In our society in general,
right.
Overall. Yeah.
Right. That were more like, in general, that were more like, just kind of like rage by 1,000 cuts, and I didn't quit because of that. I quit just because I just really kind of stopped being able to stay up past 10:15. But there is actually one other like origin story, which is really, really true, that kind of put the bee in my bonnet when I was a teenager, which was, I was at a Jewish youth group ski trip in New Hampshire. Yeah. And it was like the event of the year, and always was. And it was a sleepover at the basement of a synagogue in Manchester. It was like the funnest. It was always the funnest. And we were, came home tired from skiing, whatever. And a bunch of dudes, one of whom was in fact Adam Sandler. And I say that just for the name check because he is not particularly at fault here. But just to give you the scene, a bunch of dudes got a hold of some flannel nightgowns and God knows where, but like grapefruits, and did this impromptu drag sketch. And P.S., I love drag, but this was just like, dudes putting grapefruits if you put a grapefruit in, it makes a boob. Like that level of drag. Yeah. And they did this kind of like, not offensive, but just like freaking slapstick goofball jokey thing on the stage.
Yeah.
Which brought the house down, and probably it was legitimately silly and funny. And I was like in the like realm of like goofball girls also. And of course my first thought is like, all right, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? What should we do now? What should we do now? How do we
Put a
respond?
cucumber in our pants. I don't know.
Exactly. Like, what do we do? And even at age 16 or whatever it was, I knew, and this is like 1983, I knew there's nothing we can do. Like, and it's not that women aren't funny. It's that audiences don't think women are as funny. There's nothing we could do that would make people go like, yes, unless we like took off our clothes. Like it was just, there was no space for us to meet that level of probably legitimate hilarity. It just, not because of women not being funny, but because people didn't think women were funny. And we would have had to, like, could we have done something hilarious? Sure. But we would have had to spend 2 days writing the sketch and, unveiled it 2 days later as the big finale, blah, 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 blah. It just, my spider sense was that this isn't going to work. And, like, right or wrong, and I was right, that stuck with me as just like, no fair. And that's kind of where it all, did I vow then to start a company and, in 2022, I did not, but like, that's where my kind of like, God damn it, feeling of inequality started.
Yeah. So it's your personal experience of inequality that really like fanned your flame of like being aware that the inequality is there and what can you do to make it more equal? Because it's not fair.
Yeah. And, I didn't, other people had way worse experiences than me, but like, it was relentless.
Yeah. But you stuck with it. You stuck with it until it's, and you would still stay with it if comedy was an earlier scene, it sounds like, but it's a late.
Yeah, I know. We just talked to, one thing I am sort of flattered to think I have in common with Maria Bamford, who I adore, is that we just had an interview, like a live Zoom conversation with her at Gold Comedy. And one thing she also said is just like, girl, I can't stay up late. And she was like, I just did the best show at like 8 a.m. on a Saturday at the local clown school. And I was like, that sounds like about my speed.
You persevered through all the unfairness and continued to do comedy anyways. And the only reason you're still doing comedy, but you're not doing the stand-up because of the late night. That's all.
Well, it's a little broader than that. Yes, it's a little, what I really care about most, I really do like being on stage. I really do like the give and take. I really do like reading a room. I actually moved even more into storytelling, which I liked a lot because and just for similar reasons. But I never stopped doing things that were comedy adjacent. So I've always been in producing or creating some sort of comedy that may or may not require me to be alone on the stage at 11 p.m. But I produced comedy stuff in my old job, produced comedy stuff that helped make human rights issues real and relevant and actionable. And, things that are always just, using comedy as a muscle to make change, but at more reasonable hours usually.
Right. So it's not like you've given up. It's more just that you've swerved. That's all. But
it's just not as much stand up. And also stand up like is a wicked commitment. Like there's so many ways to do comedy or be involved in comedy or be creating comedy or love comedy or just be part of comedy that don't require the level of commitment of stand-up. And I'm not trying to convince people not to do stand-up. Please, for the love of God, do stand-up. That is not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that if you're going to do stand-up, please know it takes a lot of repetition, most of it at night.
Yeah, I just listened to this audiobook. I think it's called Someday I'll Talk Funny, or have you heard of it?
Oh, yes.
What is
super
that? Good.
Yes. This Will Be Funny Someday by Katie Henry.
That's it. That's the one. That's one. Super good. And
just pulled it purely out of my brain.
Amazing. So good. Yeah. I bring that up because it's a fictional book, but she gets, into stand-up comedy by accident as a high school aged girl. But I think it ties in a lot to some of the themes you're saying, and it makes it really interesting and funny, but also giving a good point. So
there's a few books out now that involve teenage girls doing stand-up or improv that are actually pretty good.
Woo.
Yeah.
Good.
We'll put them in the show notes. Yeah, they're good.
Yes. What would help most right now.
Let's talk about Gold a little bit, because
Okay.
it's unique, and it's not hard to understand, but
Yeah.
it's a new model, so
Yes.
sometimes it takes a little detail work.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what
So
is Gold Comedy and how did you start it? And then tell us all more about it.
well, thank you. I started Gold because of all the stuff I just told you. Like that, I wanted
Yes.
to make sure that as I said, comedy is hard for everyone. I wanted to make it as easier for the people for whom it is hardest,
Mm.
for women, others, anyone outside the sort of straight white dude comedy norm, who is often a straight white dude named Norm. We love those guys, but no shade to the individuals. It's just the scene is hard.
Yeah.
And whatever scene it is, stand-up, sketch, improv, writing for TV, whatever it is, it's hard. There's a lot of great places where you can learn comedy. There's a lot of great places out there that can give you a leg up. Gold is the only one that combines a comedy school that works at many levels, where novices and intermediate and advanced can intermingle comfortably. That includes stand-up, sketch, improv, web series, pitching your TV show. We combine that with community. And that's the most important thing. You can take a great class anywhere, including Gold, but we don't sell our classes individually. We work on a subscription basis. And I say that not to just like be a nerd and tell you like, so sign up now, but of course you should, but
Yes, you should.
because we work on a subscription basis, because that for an annual subscription, because that underscores that isn't just our business model, that's our value. That's like, you're part of a community. We are your crew. We are solving for not just the skill building that you want, but we are your friends, your professional network, the people you ask if you need a certain kind of camera or mic to shoot your sketch. We're the people that you ask if you're going to an open mic in a new city and who's there. We're your built-in crew. And we also, and we also make content. So our classes and our programs, including our selective sketch teams program, we have 12 selective teams who make comedy shorts. Compare and contrast, SNL has 2 and they're all dudes. So we have 12, and we help with the resources that you need, including putting your team together in the first place, either in the city where you live or virtually, so that now you have a bunch of people to make comedy shorts with. And we give you resources. We give you guidance from a quadruple Emmy nominated producer. We showcase your work on our platforms, and you own it. We license it. And some of the work that we've helped produce is now on its way to being picked up by a fast channel. Some of the work that gets produced in our classes has gone on to turn into pilots that win awards. People get representation. People win festivals. People win pitch competitions. We put you on the real professional track to success. And so it's all this nice sort of virtuous cycle where the members learn together at whatever level they start. They collaborate together, and then they support each other's success out in the real world in the kind of comedy that they want to succeed in.
That's fantastic. And this is online, so it's not like local to any particular region. Anybody. Worldwide.
Anybody. Yeah, worldwide. We
Almost
do have,
mostly worldwide.
We have people all over the world.
Yes.
It's the class schedules are a little funky for them sometimes, but we have a ton of on-demand content that they can access. And then we do have certain place-based groups and teams, like in the obvious places, LA, Chicago, but also Austin, Boston, North Carolina, Colorado. Like, people are all over the place and they find each other. But the point is, you don't have to be in a certain place to access what we have. You can also find people near you who are part of our community.
Right. And I love that. I didn't know that the community aspect was so huge with Gold Comedy. Yeah. So it's really like a place of like mentorship, right? Like, in a way, it's like a community, but also mentorship.
Yeah. There's always people whom like you can mentor. There's always people at your level, and then there's always people who are a little more advanced than you, even if they're celebrities and pros who come do our weekly Q&As with celebrities and pros, where we just had Maria Bamford, we've had Margaret Cho, Rachel Dratch as an advisor, we've had Patty Harrison, Ashley Black, lots of people who really dispense insanely actionable advice.
So good.
And right in the Zoom room with you.
Yeah. Oh my God, that is so good. I love Maria Bamford. I just saw one of her sets and I was like, so good. My husband's from Minnesota, so and I love
Yeah.
Margaret Cho. Oh my God. And Rachel Dratch. So
Yeah.
okay, cool. We have about 1 more minute left. Is there anything else that you would like to promote? And one last little question is there like a favorite food that you like? Or the worst food? So
There's really only one food that I really don't like, and that's sea
yes.
urchin, but it just doesn't come up very often. But
Oh.
my favorite foods in general are truffle popcorn and truffle potato chips. But my favorite food right now in the summer
Yes.
that I think I eat every day, just like Harriet the Spy, is a
Yes.
tomato sandwich. Has to be on white bread with mayonnaise and a little salt. Obsessed.
Really?
And yep,
Really?
the most delicious
Okay.
thing. And the
Okay.
main thing is, I hope that people check out Gold Comedy at club.goldcomedy.com or just goldcomedy.com. And
Yeah.
no matter where you are in your career, you can probably find a place with us and, write jokes, make friends, and learn the rule of three.
That sounds fantastic. Thank you so much, Lynn, for being a guest here. This has gone too short, I think. I feel like I could talk to you for way longer.
I think I have to talk to you about tomato sandwiches more, if anything, but
I'll
that
give
can
it
be
a
for a
try.
different podcast.
Thank you so much for listening to Conversations with Aaliyah Lay. I'd love to hear from you. Follow me on Instagram at Aaliyah Lay, ALYALEI.